Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Life, and this episode of Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson. But before we get to Brian, I just want to introduce our main sponsor, which is Hargrave Fiber. They're a internet uh, service provider as well as provider of fast internet connections and business solutions, whether you're a small business or a large business. They're out there in the community providing that service. So check them out. Hargrave is doing their economic stimulus plan this year, and they believe in small businesses and they want to help you out. So you may qualify for a 1 year free business internet and phone service. To check them out, just simply go to hargrave.com/business/economic hyphen stimulus, and you'll be able to check out what they're offering. They're a big partner, not only with the businesses, but with the community they're in. Like I said, they've done things here with the city, with Curiosity Lab. Check them out. Great supporter. They are not the cable guy. They're there when you need them. That's Hargrave Fiber. So I appreciate them supporting not only the Peachtree Corners magazine, but the podcast that we do. So let's bring in Brian. Brian, I just want to let people and reintroduce to people what we do, right? Every month after the city council meeting, when that happens the fourth Tuesday of the month, we go into a meeting on a Thursday. We pre-record this actually live, and then we put it out a day or two later as a simulcast. But we talk about all the city news, right, that's going on. And I've been fortunate to have a good co-host, if you will, in you, in the sense that every question I have, if you have an answer, you give it to me. If you don't, you find it. And on rare occasions, you tell me, Rico, we can't talk about it, and because you're not afraid of the questions I give you. So I just want people to understand that. Yeah, sometimes where I'll ask you stuff about executive sessions and what the city council is doing. You're you're honest. You tell me, no, we can't go there, but it'll be out at some point. So I'm glad that you're there to help me bring the real news, if you will, and the right information out to people, which it's sometimes difficult to do in this environment.
Well, and conversely, Rico, the city appreciates what you do because you provide this podcast provides yet another vehicle for information to get to people. As
Yeah,
the internet, once it was created and these different sites and how they've kind of evolved, people
right.
get their news from different places. And even those who are getting news from the internet, at some point they're not all getting it from the same place. So we as a city try to do as much as we can to cross the spectrum on getting information that affects their lives, that affects the community they live, work, or play in. And one of those is a podcast. So we appreciate this vehicle to help educate those that may have missed it when it's in some of our other forms. And this is a good one. So, again, thanks for providing something that probably a lot of people in the community don't realize is as important as it is. Because there's a lot of cities out there who don't have these communication vehicles
Oh,
to
for
learn
sure.
information from.
For sure, and I appreciate that. I mean, I know the cities out there doing a lot of social media, cities out there with their own Peachtree network on YouTube, providing, and you guys have put out regular videos all the time. So, you're putting out stuff, and I look at it not just as news, but as information, right? Because you could get information from anywhere, from next door, you could get it from Facebook, get it from Twitter. Now, we're not talking fake news, we're talking people getting information and putting it out, but sometimes information can be distorted or wrong. And
Yep.
so I'm glad that we're able to look at what we're doing, and I can ask you about those things and you can help with bringing the right facts out rather than people just thinking, 20 times over what someone said and saying, yeah, that bridge cost $40 million, because those things happen. People get things wrong. And so this is a good place. Not only this, but Peachtree Corners Life and even Capitalist Sage, the other podcast I do with
Yep.
Carl Barham, putting information out there about all sorts of things. What the city did with the care funds for small businesses, and just making sure people understand what they can what's out there, and so this is cool. um let's start right into it. City council was just this Tuesday, and the first thing that I see is like lots of businesses are actually opening, even in this environment. And a lot of them are either restaurants or places of brew, if you will, if I want to get a brew, right? So one of the first ones that I saw was Kettle Rock Brewing, applied for approval for their alcoholic beverage license. So did Moe's Original Barbecue, Uncle Jack's Meat House, that's hopefully that should be opening soon as well, and Royal Bistro on Spalding Drive. Four new businesses. Did they all pass? By the way, did they all get their approvals on
They
those?
did. They did.
Cool. And you know, listen, people look at COVID and what we've been going on for the past year. Um, you know, and businesses closing, it's good to see there are businesses opening.
It is. I mean, the landscape in Peachtree Corners, as it is across city, or in cities across the country, are going through a transition,
Yeah.
and there are there is vacant, space that wasn't vacant before the pandemic. There are businesses that have closed,
Right.
but we do have a pretty good mix for those who are closing or they're scaling back their in-person operations or whatever. We do have still, businesses that are opening, and that is a testament not only to the entrepreneurial spirit that we have around here, but also the customer base. Our residents are still going out and spending money on our local economy, and that's important. The more they do, the more money the city gets, through sales tax and other means like business license to put back into the community.
Right.
So, we appreciate all of those, those purchases that are made out in town.
Yeah. In some cases, almost fearful, but in some cases, it almost looks like the COVID, like the pandemic's over. I mean, you got these restaurants filling up and stuff, but I think they're all doing it safely. Um, and it's just going to be the way it is, right? I mean, there's more exposure and stuff. God willing, there'll be less people getting sick with the new vaccine coming out and stuff being used. So. Um, Also, I mean, in some of the things going on, Cornerstone Christian Academy is also looking to expand. They've asked for a change of conditions on their almost 11-acre campus. They're moving forward to doing a few things also during this time.
They are. They're redesigning their campus in the way, they stood the school up in existing commercial office space, so it was created, constructed for different reason
Right.
than to being a school. And so as they have expanded and they've better identified how they can make, what is really evolved into a mini campus, how
Mm-hmm.
they can make it better for their students. They've identified a opportunity to demolish an existing building and create kind of a quad for them to have some other, opportunities to do things outside or to, make the campus feel a little bit more like a campus. So,
Yeah.
we're moving forward with that.
Cool. There's also a pet boarding amendment to the zoning code, which probably has been needed for a while. So tell us just a quick bit about that. We do want to get into the multi-use ordinance. That is really the meat of what's been going on here. But tell us a little bit about that pet boarding.
Well, I mean, the pet boarding is just, us better, identifying the places and the prerequisites for a space to be used for pet boarding.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to this, it was a little bit, wide open and a little bit, there's a lot to be determined on each specific case, which made it sometimes difficult for somebody looking to do something because they didn't know what the parameters were going to be.
Right.
And then it puts council sometimes in difficult positions that they were having to decide who does and doesn't get, that exception. And this is a pretty common when, especially in new cities like ours, when, the day we became a city, we took Gwinnett County's code and we just adopted it as ours, which, in the, we had to have that, and it was an expedient way to have something in place. So that was great, but that is code that, Gwinnett County is a very large area with very diverse types of land uses. I mean, you got everything from urban down here at the southern part of the county up to rural spots up when you get up near, Brazelton and Auburn, Georgia, and that kind of stuff. And so they have to have code that applies to the whole thing. And
Yeah.
as you know, it doesn't always fit a more urban, setting like ours. And so as we identify those needs, we address them. And the pet boarding was another one, and we addressed it. And we're going to be better positioned to rule on that the next time somebody presents something to city.
So, that's a great segue, because part of what's going on now with the multi-use ordinance and the adjustments of the code there is actually right to address and systemize what should be in place with incentives. So then this way, there's no, like you said, case by case adjustments, right? This way, a developer can come in, a business can come in, and they can say, "Oh, okay, those are the rules. I can follow those rules. I know what to do now." Versus, this is real vague. Who am I going to speak to about this? So why don't you give us, um, a quick overview of what the intent is of revising the ordinance of the multi-use?
All right, so we do need to start with talking about, what I said a little bit earlier, and that is the transition that the city's landscape is going to be, going through over the next X amount of months or maybe even years. The pandemic has changed a lot of things and has put a lot of stress on a lot of different types of uses. So, three of them specifically, which could all apply to this, are going to be a couple things. One is commercial office space. Commercial office space, which we were, very lucky to have a lot of jobs here. Before the pandemic, we were about 45,000 people and about 45,000 jobs that actually had people in, butts and seats here.
Right.
That's changed now with COVID and more, embracing of virtual work. And so
Does
there's
the city
commercial
does
office space transitioning.
does the city, not to interrupt you, but just does the city have any idea how many people are actually working in the city now?
Right this second, no.
Okay.
I don't know of anybody who does because, to be honest with you, I don't know if the companies themselves know what they're going to do yet.
Mm,
Some companies have said, we're going to try to do all virtual or almost all virtual. Some have
okay.
said, this virtual thing does not work for our type of business and we want to come back as soon as possible. And then they're having, if they're tenants, they're having their landlords make, changes to the floor plans by actually going away from the open floor plan.
Hmm.
They now want more walls
Mm,
separating people because that
right.
allows them to get away from, maybe I guess the risk of, aerosolized virus.
Right.
And
Okay.
so, and then you've got the hybrids, which is okay. When we get back to normal, our normal's not going to look the way it did before the pandemic. An example of that would be like, and I'll just throw a round number out. Let's say there's a company that had 100 employees. Before the pandemic, all 100 employees came to work at a location. Well, the pandemic had forced them to, of course, work through how to, provide their services virtually. Well, now they're like, you know what? We don't have to have everybody come in all at once. So
Hmm.
they're telling their landlord, look, we need to downsize or change our space. And even though we have 100 employees, I only need, say, 60 seats. And I'm going to be rotating people through. Not many are going to have their own office. They're going to kind of hot desk that, you'll be in the desk one day while I'm working from home, and the next day I fall in on that desk and you're working from home. And so,
Right.
a lot more into that WeWork type of space, the Regis, so anyway, that, look, we don't know how it'll end up and companies are going to be different, but yes, we are seeing a fundamental change in commercial office space. So that's one where we have a lot of that we're going to see a lot of change. Two, we also have retail. Retail was undergoing a evolution in and of itself before the pandemic. The bricks and mortar retail, as people had started to trend towards ordering things more online, Amazon, and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
there were less people going to bricks and mortar to shop because they didn't feel like they needed to. And then the pandemic only accelerated that. So we have a lot of retail, space that is trying to figure out how to best, be there, because retail, bricks and mortar retail can't go away completely. But then the old way of doing things, where the only way for you to get a pair of pants is to go to a clothing store, see if they had it, try it
Right.
on, buy it, leave, is
Right.
not the case anymore. And so, that's the second thing that we're really seeing an accelerated, metamorphosis. The third one is multifamily housing. And by multifamily, I'm really talking about housing that's not detached housing, the standalone house.
Hmm.
But multifamily meaning more dense housing, more units under one roof. And that could be everything from townhomes that are owned all the way through condos, stacked flats, to just even apartments. But all of that is the pressure to build that is increasing as more people who had worked in maybe companies that have headquarters in Midtown Atlanta or
Hmm.
Buckhead or wherever, that those employees now realize they don't have to go in every day, or they don't even have to go in a lot, most of the time. And then
Right.
that means that where they live has expanded much beyond where it used to be. If you want to live in Peachtree Corners, but you worked, downtown, you had an hour in the car each way every day, and that could
Hmm.
affect quality of life. And some people are like, I don't want to do it. So they found a place to live close to the downtown. Now they don't have to worry about that the same way that they did before. So now they're thinking, you know what, Peachtree Corners is an option,
Yeah.
and I can still work at a company that's headquartered down there. So there really is a big push for housing here,
Hmm.
and that push for housing combined with the changes in the other two, you're starting to see redevelopment needs um, get presented to the city. And of course, we've talked about the redevelopment authority, and this would be a tool. All of that is a
Right.
long way of me saying the mixed use development ordinance that we just amended is a tool, a significant tool we think will help guide the city's actions as these forces that I just talked about are colliding together. And we're starting to see an increase in applications from developers saying, hey, we have this parcel and it's X amount of acres and it's got Y amount of square feet of existing building on it, but the building is underutilized or it's vacant, and
Hmm.
we want to redevelop it in a certain way. We knew that we needed to address this, and the way to do that is through mix of uses versus one particular use. And the reason that you do it, and this, Rico, having been in land planning, the mix of uses or mixed use is a popular way to develop property because it increases the odds. Maybe in some cases only a little, but it increases
Hmm.
the odds of success of the uses that you have mixed on one parcel, because you now create a micro economy, if you will.
Right.
So instead of, if I had 10 acres and instead of putting all housing on the 10 acres, I might be able to mix in some retail and commercial.
Hmm.
And as a result, I can get a higher yield on my property, but also all of the vacant units of whatever type are filled at higher rent rates or lease rates or purchase
Hmm.
rates, because instead of, say, a coffee shop being in a strip mall and its only customer base are the ones that have to get in the car and drive to that location, you put a coffee shop in an area where there's already a lot of residential units, and now you have the convenient walk-up traffic too.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean, you look at
walk-up traffic is more inclined to go to that coffee shop because they don't have to get into their car. It's convenient.
this is exactly why when town center was initially developed, it was talked about putting a now it will change obviously a boutique hotel, the Indigo Hotel with 160 odd rooms, and an apartment, uh, 7-story apartment building with another 160, right? Now, the indigo may go away because hotels are essentially having issues, right? Lower vacancies and stuff, and that may not change for the next decade, uh, especially when there's a lot of other hotels in the area, right? But apartments, like you said, multi-use, if there's a coffee shop downstairs, like the Revelator that was downstairs, not that that was the best coffee shop at Town Center, but if there was, an apartment complex there full of people, that might not have gone out of business. There may have been more usage. And quite frankly, like you said, there are people moving that may decide to move away from Midtown. Now they're looking not just being close to a place, but also the amenities of it, right?
Yes.
Bars, nice restaurants, good places to go, some good energy, if you will, of that. That people may look and say, well, Peachtree Corners is not like that, right? It's not like that right now. A decade from now, because business evolves, right, will be different. And that's what this is supposed to help, right? So, right? I mean, it's supposed to get other businesses type here and mix it all together and create some energy there that people are going to want to move in.
Well, look, even before the pandemic,
Hmm.
where we are in a metro area, a metropolitan statistical area, Metro Atlanta, that has a population that's been growing for centuries, really.
Yeah.
And we know that population is going to get denser and denser in Peachtree Corners, whether we like it or not.
Hmm.
So the key for the city was to try to have the tools in place to manage that growth. And so the pandemic has merely just accelerated it. And so we wanted to preemptively create something that might help. So the points you just made, which is growth is coming, it's coming even faster than, there's more of a tidal wave, if you will, of it
Yeah.
coming. What can we do to capitalize on this? To make sure that the growth that does happen is done in a way that has long-term success, and
Hmm.
B, sometimes prevent some unforeseen certain, um, effects of maybe letting things happen in a way that was not set up for success. And oftentimes that a
Sure.
good way to say that is if you allow too much of any one thing
Hmm.
to happen in one area, sometimes that can create problems in the future as things change. And so mix of uses. So what we'd want to do is we wanted to encourage a mix of uses. It's what people want. People want amenities, and
Hmm.
then amenities want people. And so there's a symbiotic relationship. We wanted to create that. Then we wanted to incentivize it. And by that, I mean, we said, all right, we can have a mixed use development and we just offer it up. And that's all fine. But oftentimes, what happens is developers come to us and in all cities, not just us, and they
Sure.
are looking for density. Because, as you know, density is the currency of
Right.
development. The more dense a developer can make a property, the more money that he or she can make. And so they're always coming to the city and wanting more density. Well, before we had a baseline density of 32 units per acre on mixed use. And that's what we inherited from the county. And so when we amended this, that was just approved Tuesday night, we knew that we wanted to do something with that because what was happening and what happens with the county currently, what was happening with us is developers are coming on mixed use saying, if you want us to do a mix of use, and we understand why you like us to do mix of use, but if you want us to do it, we need more density than 32 per acre. And we had to, on a case by case basis, allow them to essentially lobby the mayor and council, make their argument. And council had, they're put in difficult positions every time of choosing who gets it this time versus next time, all that kind of stuff. And so we knew we wanted to have a standard. And then the other thing is we knew we wanted to maybe incentivize that mix of use. So for you to qualify for this one, as we wrote it, we kind of made it a more incentive based mix of use. So for instance, if you want a mix of use, you got to have at least 3 uses on the property. And 2, if you want anything above what was the baseline of 32 per acre, which has again been on the city's books since our inception, it's what Gwinnett County has. If you wanted more than that, you have to earn it. That's the only way to do it. And so by earn it, we created an incentive table. And that incentive table basically has a list of things that the developer could include in a mixed-use development to earn more density. Things like donating property to the city for open space or trail system, making it LEED certified, adding smart home technology to the units, sub-metering apartment units so that they could be converted to condos, putting micro mobility or e-scooter
Hmm.
corrals and charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations, adaptive reuse of existing office buildings. Those are just some of the things on the list that you could a developer could come in and say, all right, I'm doing this, and we would say, okay, well, you just earned half a unit per acre increase in density. You want more, you got to do more. At the end of the day, the developer could get more density when we capped it at 45. We also capped uh, the the maximum height at 120 feet or 10 stories. By the way, our old
Yeah.
code had a 25-story max.
Did it really?
Yeah, so we're not ready for 25
Yeah, yeah.
story buildings in
That
Peachtree.
was based on Gwinnett's. I
That's
think that was
based
based
on
on
Gwinnett.
Gwinnett's.
And Gwinnett still has that, and that's fine. And clearly the city had never approve that. But anyway, we also looked at other aspects of the mixed use, and we made it our own, because before it was what we inherited. Now we made it our own, but we capped the density at 45 units per acre, and most of the additional density comes at a half a unit per acre. And so to get to 45, you got to do a lot of stuff. But the
Mhm.
more density you earn, the better that product is for the community. The more additional value add,
Right.
aspects of that development this community will get to enjoy, and that development will have to attract a better quality tenant, whether it's tenants in the residential units, tenants in the commercial or retail spaces, but a better quality tenant. We get a better product. We get things that you and I already live in the city, but we get places that we may want to go to, to frequent, and we don't necessarily live right there, but it's stuff that we can enjoy, other residents can enjoy too. So that was
Mhm.
the impetus for this, the brainchild for it, and
Right.
we're kind of excited about what it could offer the redevelopment authority that just was stood up, just elected its officers yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they're getting ready to start real hardcore assessment of their area and seeing about maybe opportunities for redevelopment. So we're excited about it. It's a unique ordinance, and we hope to put it to good use.
Yeah, I think that the city is moving in the right direction by doing that. It cuts red tape. I mean, it allows for certainty versus lobbying for what someone may
Yep,
want. But it also doesn't preclude the planning commission or the city council from still putting conditions on a zoning,
absolutely.
uh, right? On asking for um, plans that site plans that have to be adhered to, and if it's changed, it would come back again. So it still gives the council flexibility to be able to work at development, but it at least gives some certainty to people that that's a baseline that they can work from, right?
Yes, I mean, look, it helps manage expectations of all parties when you have it codified like we do in an ordinance. You are right that nothing precludes planning commission as it works through from making recommended conditions, adding
Hmm.
that to an application. And of course, mayor and council are the final authority on this. So this is at their discretion at all times, including they have the right to amend the ordinance, which they
Right.
certainly, if things come up. This
Hmm.
is an ordinance that we started out as one that applies citywide. There are a few examples. There are a few cases in the ordinance in which there's a specific reference to an area of the city. And a good example would be, we want this to apply to parcels that are 8 acres or greater,
Okay.
except for Tech Park. And Tech Park, given how it was developed, we are allowing it to be as little as 5 acres in the case of Tech Park, because it's a unique It's a unique development that has adaptive reuse opportunities or needs, as the case may be, that may be on parcels that are not as big, at 8 acres or bigger.
Right.
So there are a few specific geographic references, but right now this applies citywide. And, again, there are some good opportunities out there for this to be put to good use.
Yeah, and I imagine that already there are probably, I think last time we spoke, there may have been three companies or three developers looking at least at coming in, uh, to make a proposal on some of the commercial buildings within Tech Park or in the
Yeah.
area, right? There's even a hotel that might actually, that someone was looking at, an investor was looking at, I think, of converting or doing something with in the city.
There,
So,
there is definitely, certainly some unique, again, adaptive reuses of existing office buildings or
mhm,
excuse me, buildings, including hotels that are being explored nationally as well as here in Peachtree Corners. I mean, again, people are thinking outside the box because the landscape of what we do out in town, as the term is,
mhm,
has changed.
right,
And the pandemic has accelerated this change at a rate that would have taken a decade or more for us to slowly get into. But
right,
how much we order online has really gone. How we're going to work has changed. How hotels operate and even just get their feet underneath them. I mean, they don't even have their feet underneath them yet because
right,
travel restrictions are such. So this landscape
right. Yeah,
is going to change, and everybody, including the city, has to remain flexible, have to be as prepared to think outside the box as we possibly can, and we're certainly trying to do that ourselves.
for sure. I mean, we spoke about not only um, the way people live and work, but how they travel. Less traffic on the roads, less use of certain intersections, just because of the nature of the beast and what's been going on. Now, are we going to come back in a year or two? Who knows? But like you said before, businesses are rediscovering or discovering that they don't need a 15,000 square foot facility. Maybe they only need a 5,000 square
Yep.
foot. So these are things that are not going to go away. These are things that are going to probably stay. That's part of that issue, right? When people learn that they could do something a certain way, why should they go back? They're going to end up continuing to do that just because it's more profitable that way, or it's better um, living standards that way, right? I mean, I think people want to be able to work at home, get paid time off when they can. Um, Unlimited paid time off is a big thing that came out of COVID also. That it used to just be technology, but now they put it out because if you're working from home, how can you even investigate how much time you have off? So, I mean, it's kind of interesting how we are evolving. There's the good side and the bad side. But I think the city's taken a dramatically great step towards making this easier because there will be changes. I mean, national hotel chains are deciding which hotels they're going to be shutting down.
Yes.
Um, right? Major corporations that have 40 offices across the Southeast may decide two or three of them need to go away. Um, so I think you guys are doing the right thing out there and still retain the ability to condition developments as they need it on this specific basis. But, we have to attend to what's going on. Belks, the Forum, Town Center, Jimmy Carter Boulevard, all, Holcomb Bridge, all the redevelopment stuff, the empty places that we have. Um, at some point they do need to be, they're going to be with the interest rate as low as it is, and with money being available, there's going to be a lot more development. The faucet's going to open wide soon. Give it another year, and things will be in place to move way faster than they're doing now, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So, um, appreciate you coming out and, coming out. Well, you're in the office there, so you don't have to go too far, I guess. And neither do I, right? Um,
Right.
but Brian, I appreciate you being with me and answering questions and going through this. You know, it's a great city we live in, and I'm glad that we're able to do what we do. It's all good. Do you have
Always
anything?
my yeah, no, I mean, always my pleasure, Rico. Again, thanks for giving the city this forum to help get information out, to give people a glimpse into what the city's looking to what it's dealing with. There are other ways to learn that, but this is sometimes a good one because you get to ask me follow-on questions that you, as a
Sure.
resident, it comes to your mind. So
Mhm.
it works out well. So keep up the good work, and thanks for what you're doing for the community.
Well, thank you, Brian. And thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to this, or if you're reading the transcript. This has been Prime Lunchtime with City Manager Brian Johnson, a great city of Peachtree Corners. My name is Rico Figliolini, your host, and I appreciate you being here. Like our Facebook page or the YouTube channel to be able to get notified when we go live on these things, because we're moving towards more of that, right? So stay safe out there, be well, and we'll see you next time.